Well, let's speak to Dana Lewis, a journalist and podcaster who interviewed Donald Rumsfeld shortly before the start of the Iraq War. He joins me now live from London. Dana, good to see you. So you actually spoke to Donald Rumsfeld in Doha, I think about 3 or 4 months before the start of the Iraq War. And in fact, he was very vocal then about the weapons of mass destruction, which were one of the major triggers for the war.
Indeed. And I can tell you as a reporter, and you as a journalist would know, you can interview a lot of people, but Rumsfeld took no prisoners. And if you didn't have your facts in a row and you didn't know exactly what you were saying or quoting when you asked him a question, he would chew you up. And that's pretty much how he approached the battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. He was sure of himself. He was absolutely sure that his strategy in Afghanistan would work, and to a large degree it did. He was brought in to restructure the U.S. Army into a lighter, more nimble force. And that's exactly what they were in Afghanistan. They used special forces to go with the Northern Alliance and dismantle the Taliban. But when it came to Iraq, I mean, he didn't have an end game, Shuli. And so he persisted that Saddam had biological, chemical weapons, weapons of mass destruction. He said, over and over again, they had to take him out and quoted intelligence, but there was no post-war plan. And as that looting took place, as they started to dismantle Baghdad and they fired the Ba'ath party members and the army, they simply didn't know how to stand up a government and didn't even anticipate that they would have to do so. And then, surely, he would tell us over and over again that the insurgency in Iraq was short-lived. There were just a couple of holdouts, and that eventually it would evaporate. And he was clearly very, very wrong on all of that.
Yeah, he faced a lot of criticism on, as you say, the lack of post-war planning, also criticism on the way US troops were equipped during those campaigns. What was his attitude, his response to those criticisms?
There were a number of criticisms from soldiers. I mean, in Afghanistan, they were put in very light with no armor. And look, there were some huge firefights in which, American forces were pinned down and lost a lot of soldiers because they didn't have the right equipment. They didn't have the right air cover. And he wanted to stay light. And then the same in Iraq. I mean, when soldiers started to complain that they were hitting these IEDs and losing so many soldiers to roadside bombs, they had to armor up their own Humvees, and he wouldn't do it for them. I mean, he didn't feel that the Pentagon should step up and fund any of that. And, he's famous for that quote, right? That when they ask him about weapons of mass destruction, he goes, there are known-uns, there are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns, and that is to say we know that there are some things we don't know, but there are also unknown unknowns, and the ones we don't know, we don't know. And, he stood by that quote. He didn't say it was gibberish. And later on, he wrote a book called Known and Unknown based on that very famous quote. And it was a joke amongst a lot of different people. But Rumsfeld was never one to back down and admit that he had ever done anything wrong.
Yeah, known unknowns and unknown unknowns. That was the famous quote. Dana, thank you very much indeed for that. Dana Lewis there.